Tuesday night edition of the Anaheim Calling podcast. We are back to discuss a game that happened tonight at Honda Center. The Ducks lost 4-3 in overtime after leading 3-1 at one point against the Detroit Red Wings, losing this one in ugly fashion. There's no other way to describe it. They now have lost 4 games in a row. They have only won 3 of their last 12 games. So it's not pretty right now, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
The question is, will this be a pretty podcast? And I think we're going to do our best to not beat the dead horse here because, I mean, it's there to be beaten. But I think that everyone kind of understands right now that this team is not at 100% strength. It's missing an entire pairing, which, as we discussed in yesterday's show, is of particular importance to this team. The Ducks don't have good defensive depth, and so when they lose their first pairing, it's like almost like losing two pairings, right? Because you have a pairing in Fowler Guhle that first off wasn't even together tonight, but it just isn't together when Manson and Lindholm aren't together, and then you have a third pairing in Larson and Holzer that's just a disaster right now. And Eric Goodbranson is there. He puts on a jersey, he laces up skates. Hard to say what else he does, but yeah, the defense right now on this team is an issue.
Yeah, there's really no other way to put it. It's definitely an issue. And like you said, it's kind of a crux, I guess, by saying this, but a lot of it comes down to both Manson and Lindholm being injured. And we mentioned it on last show that, for better or for worse, there's probably 50% of the league that become kind of where the Ducks are at when they lose their top pairing. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. I do think the Ducks are a bit in the lower end of that because, as we've talked about, that their defensive depth isn't that great. Right now, really, they're kind of rolling out Cam Fowler as being the only legit top 4 NHL defenseman in that group. And that's an issue and a concern, and that's not necessarily something, and this is where it kind of needs to be a conversation about coaching versus composition to try to understand if this is a situation, if the poor play from the defense comes from the coaching, comes from the roster. And I think that there's no other way to look at it than it's the roster. And I don't know if you want to blame Bob Murray, because maybe you can, for not having enough defensive depth within this roster, within this system, to be able to cope with 2 injuries, because injuries are going to happen. But I don't really know if people want to pin the blame on Dallas Eakins. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not seeing that completely all around, but to me, this is solely on Bob Murray if you're trying to view this from the sense of the Ducks should be competitive, and especially against the Detroit Red Wings team, which, granted, you look at the numbers, the Ducks did have good periods of play that outdid the poor periods, where tonight they actually had some pretty good shot metrics. The issue is that depth isn't there. And so when they got hemmed in their zone, they were allowing some good chances and they weren't able to close out the game. There's really no other way to put it. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, honestly, it's kind of shocking. This is kind of going a little bit of an opposite direction. Not completely, but a little bit from where I was at, or where I was going to take this right now. Why was Michael Del Zotto sitting?
Well, because Brendan Guhle was back in the lineup, which is
why
a pregame note here.
Why does that necessarily mean that Michael Del Zotto should come out?
Well, Josh Mahura has been playing well, I suppose. Eric Goodbranson isn't coming out. The team traded for him.
Yep.
And then Jacob Larson and Corbinian Holzer are just locks in this roster.
The Corbinian Holzer lock is the one that I'd want to talk about, because although
I think him and Larson are equally bad right now. I mean, Holzer's been bad, but you look at the goal that tied this game, and it was a 6-on-3, which is definitely not ideal. But leading up to that goal, Larson had some of it was like a highlight reel of errors in the defensive zone. Losing puck battles in the corner, failing to clear, just swimming around in the slot. He is struggling right now in this kind of elevated role. And again, this is not entirely fair, because that's not what he's being asked to do in ideal conditions. But the reality of the NHL is that conditions are not always going to be ideal, and you got to sink or swim. And right now, this blue line is sinking. And here's my thing, is that sure, the numbers were good tonight. If you look at the numbers overall, the numbers for the defense pairings, some of them are actually pretty solid. And you could look at that and say, yeah, that's probably a good long-term indicator, right? Shot attempts are a good long-term indicator. But in a single game, these pairings, so Goodbranson, Mahura, and Holzer Larson, and to a degree even, Fowler Larson were together. Larson and Holzer were together at times. And then Brendan Guhle was with Holzer for most of the game, actually. So the thing with those pairings is that they're more susceptible to big time mistakes, right? You don't see that kind of volatility with a pairing like Lindholm and Manson. Even on a night where Lindholm and Manson maybe get outshot attempted, I'm not as concerned about that in a single game because they're just more sound positionally. They're not going to get outside of their depth like a Holzer and Guhle would or Larson and Fowler. So it's tough to say. I think that long term, though, the numbers tonight are somewhat encouraging. I mean, Holzer and Guhle were just straight up bad together, which is not shocking because Guhle is coming back from the AHL and Holzer probably should be in the AHL at this point. And then Larson and Fowler were decent together, statistically speaking. And then the pairing of Goodbranson and Mahura was shockingly good. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's, again, long term, that's good. But in a single game, I'm not as high on that.
The Holzer pairing, for instance, Holzer on the night was at 20% expected goals for percentage.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's real bad.
I know that he's a right-handed shot defenseman, and this team wants to preserve some semblance of normalcy on its pairings, but that's out of the window right now. That is just completely out of the window. And so they may just have to accept that maybe it's Del Zotto over Holzer. I don't know. I don't think that that's a great alternative, by the way.
Having Del Zotto in over Holzer?
Yeah, I don't think that's a great alternative.
I think it's a decent alternative. Del Zotto the last little bit. And now, granted, I'm not saying Del Zotto is this savior.
No.
But I think that Del Zotto has shown in the last little bit that he can be a positive piece to this defense core more so than Corbinian and Holzer.
I mean, that's fair.
Holzer's been fine over this season, but over the last little bit, it's been rough. It's been very, very rough for Corbinian and Holzer in this last little stretch. And tonight was just another one of those for him. The only thing I'm curious about, and I do want to take a look at this right now, is I'm curious if Corbinian and Holzer, because he got the second line a fair amount, I think, in the last game, whereas in tonight's game, he was... You want to know which line he was mainly matched up against?
Let's hear it.
The Larkin, Mantha, Bertuzzi line.
So when you say that it's not on coaching and it's solely on Bob Murray, do you want to revisit that statement a little bit?
That's not the best idea ever. I'm curious as I'm looking at this, though. Cam Fowler was mainly up against the Franz Nielsen line, but kind of spread out through a bunch of different guys. 5 minutes against Franz Nielsen, 4 minutes, 450 against Darren Helm, 4 minutes against Larkin. And then if you look at a guy like Eric Goodbranson, his time on ice, he was mainly up against Robbie Fabry, Filppula, and Athanasiou, and a little bit against Larkin also. So it may have been actually something along the lines of a split. But yeah, Holzer was played 6 minutes against Larkin.
Yeah, and I mean maybe part of that was due to getting bottled in. I mean,
which is possible.
Here's the thing, though. A lot of people talked about Holzer saving a goal, I believe in the second period, where he got his stick out. He had to save that because he allowed a cross-ice pass to a guy that he left wide open.
Yeah, the guy's wide open because he's not on him.
Like, he had to make that save because of his own error. Yeah. And so that's...
Well, and that's...
I mean, the save is still remarkable. Yes. It was still a highlight reel play, but that's...
Well...
that you have to consider the context just a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is kind of the whole thought process at different points of time. Yes, blocking a shot is going to help your team because the puck's not going to get towards the net. But sometimes looking at block shots, and in the same way looking at hits, what that tells you sometimes is that your team doesn't have the puck.
Yeah.
And the shots are getting off. If Holzer is on his guy there and isn't leaving him wide open, a shot doesn't even get off. And so there's no shot to block. And that's the biggest thing with that play. And so, yes, he made a great play blocking it. But it's getting rough for him.
Well, let's get into this recap. So first period, second period. So first period, just kind of back and forth. Really, I thought that the Ducks had a decent first period. You look at some of the numbers, shot attempt wise, they had a slight edge. Did really well in terms of high danger chances, 6-2. The kid line had a good shift. I thought that Kasha, Ritchie, and Getzlaf looked good together in that first period. So the first period, it wasn't awe-inspiring in terms of how the Ducks were playing, but it was respectable, right? They came out and played relatively solid hockey. You could already see some slippage in their defensive coverage, but at the very least, they were getting something going the other way. And so it wasn't a bad first period by any means, and I thought it was actually somewhat encouraging. What did you make of it at all, if you got a chance to see it?
Sorry, say that one more time. I was looking at the chat.
Oh, of course you were.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you think of the first period?
I thought the first period was fine. They did a good job in the very beginning, getting a bunch of shots, getting a bunch of chances, but they weren't really able to capitalize on it. And then kind of afterwards, and this is kind of what happened throughout a lot of this game, is that they kind of went stagnant a bit, and they allowed it. It wasn't just back and forth, but it just was kind of stagnant. It wasn't really high event. It was just both teams kind of prodding and not really getting a whole lot of great chances going for them.
Yeah, and in that first period, of course, the Henrique line had some really good opportunities. I think on one shift alone, they had about 3 scoring chances. Rickard Rakell almost scored in the exact same fashion that he did just one game ago, picking up a backhand off of the goal line and then roofing it. Almost scored on that again. Good Branson even had a nice moment blocking a centering pass. And then later on in the period, Ryan Miller came up big, making some saves off of the rush. Towards the end, Ondrej Kase made a really nice spinorama move off of the rush, just going to his backhand, and it was saved by Jonathan Bernier. At the end of the period, Ryan Getzlaf just getting into an altercation with, you guessed it, Anthony Mantha. Not someone I think anyone expected. And then, of course, maybe the highlight of the night for some, Nicolas Deslauriers dropping the gloves to end the first period, which Cam Fowler, by the way, cited as an event that got the boys riled up and got the emotions going, which Jake, as a big fan of fighting in hockey, I'm sure you just love that.
Are we really getting into that?
We're not.
Are we really
we're
going
actually
there?
Not.
Okay, good.
We're actually not.
Okay, good.
But yeah, so moving on to the second period here, Ducks built on that positive momentum generated only by Deslauriers' fight. Just 15 seconds in, Jakob Silfverberg, just kind of a broken play. The puck gets centered by Silfverberg, and then it goes off of a stick and under Jonathan Bernier, and the puck is loose. There's no whistle. I was a little shocked that there was no whistle on this play. The whistle actually came a few seconds after the puck. I mean, maybe even just 1 second after the puck went into the net, and it would count. At first, the refs, it's not a reviewable play, so the refs just huddled up by the benches and decided that the goal was going to count. Bit of a lucky break, you could say, for Anaheim there, because, I mean, there should have been a whistle on that play, right? I mean, it's under Bernier's pad.
Yeah.
And it was out of sight of the referee. That's kind of the other thing I didn't understand, is that all of the check boxes, for a goal. So, okay, the puck is immobilized, it's under the goalie. And also, if you look at where the referee is on this play, he's on the other side of Jakob Silfverberg. There's absolutely no way that he could have seen this puck, but he didn't blow the whistle. And hey, play till the whistle. Silfverberg certainly did that, and that would make it 1-0 for Anaheim.
Yep.
Just a few seconds later, this has maybe been a theme with the Ducks this season where they score in bunches. I mean, it happened last game against Edmonton. It happened against Minnesota last week. Yeah, so I don't know, bit of a theme there. This one, a nice zone entry, a nice drop pass by Adam Henrique after Nick Ritchie and Ondrej Kase entered the zone. Josh Mahura picks it up, recognizes that there's a lot of space in front of him, and then fires it on net. And Nick Ritchie sets a screen that kind of, sort of, not really makes contact with Jonathan Bernier, and it goes straight in, and that would make it 2-0.
Yes.
The Red Wings would actually issue a coach's challenge, and knowing that coaches have access to the video and are getting recommendations from their video room anytime a goal happens, I'm actually kind of shocked that they challenged this one because it was not much contact by Nick Ritchie.
I think their thought process there is that there is contact with the glove and the shot goes glove side. So maybe they're hoping that when the NHL takes a look at it, or when they end up taking a better look at the play, they end up saying, well, yes, there is contact. Yes, it might be incidental, but it stops him from being able to make a play on the puck because it's a distinct play on the glove. The shot goes glove side, different things like that. Where this play ends up going, though, and I'm trying to get up the NHL rulebook. I have it up right now, trying to find goaltender interference very quickly. Might need a second, though, on that. But essentially, the way it's worded in the rulebook is that incidental contact is allowed if it's outside the crease. And so that is
which
how
Bernier was.
Well, it's not necessarily where Bernier is. It doesn't matter where Bernier is. It matters where the contact happens. If Bernier is in the crease but his gloves reached out and contact happens, the contact's outside of the crease. It depends on where that contact occurs. And that's the key here, because if there is the contact inside the crease, whether it's incidental or not, it's goaltender interference. If it's outside the crease and it's incidental, it's not. It's written like that.
I thought it was a terrible challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, the call on the ice is goal, and I don't know what was kind of that golden nugget of evidence that was going to overturn the call. I think that, here's my theory on this. I think that the video coach that looks at this probably told them, yeah, well, you could challenge it. And then Jeff Blashill thought, okay, I'm going to challenge it because we can't be down 2-0. Right away, it's going to kill our momentum. And so he did challenge it, and they lost, and then they took a penalty because of it. So I'm just really not a fan of coaches issuing challenges when it's not obviously interference or not obviously some type of infraction, because the downside is really high. You go shorthanded. So you can't just throw the flag out like they used to. I actually really like this new rule because I think that's the way it should be. If you're going to delay the game by asking the referees to look at it again, you better have a damn good reason. And to me, that wasn't really in that category at all.
All right, so I've got the ruling up. So here it is. Contact inside the goal crease. If an attacking player initiates contact with the goalkeeper, incidental or otherwise, while the goalkeeper is in his goal crease and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed. Whereas 69.4 says contact outside the goal crease, says if an attacking player initiates any contact with a goalkeeper other than incidental contact, while the goalkeeper is outside his goal crease and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the key there. So incidental contact is permitted. And so that is the absolute key on that play.
Yeah, you nailed it. So let's get into the next goal here before we jump into our first break. Back and forth period. After that goal, the Red Wings would get some chances. Overall, though, the second period, once again, was largely controlled by Anaheim. The high danger scoring chances were 7-2 in favor of the Ducks, and this is at 5-5. And the scoring chances overall were 16-8. So, I mean, again, that's a good indicator long term. Really, again, the big negative moments for the Ducks would be in small pockets, and this was definitely one of them. So after the Red Wings make a nice zone entry, Anthony Mantha back to Bertuzzi, who gets it over the point. All three of the Ducks forwards are completely stuck to one side of the ice, the left wing. Filip Hronek is left wide open, wide open, about as wide open as possibly can be in the left faceoff circle. No one recognized that in time. He gets the puck and gets all of it. I mean, he puts all of his weight into it. And if you remember when the Ducks played the Red Wings earlier this season, Hronek also scored from that spot. And I think it was also against Ryan Miller. Or no, it was against John Gibson.
Yeah, it was John Gibson, I think, in that one.
But anyway, he gets all of it. That would make it 2-1. So just real poor defensive coverage there. That was the good Branson and Mahura pairing out there on the ice for that goal. So we're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of it, we are going to get into the rest of this recap. Okay, back from our second break. So let's hammer through this second period. After the Ducks would give up that goal, just a couple of minutes later, they would again just find ways to keep the distance between themselves and the Red Wings. This was a really nice play in the corner. Andre Kasha winning a puck battle to then get it down low to Ryan Getzlaf, who then just scans the ice as he so often does and just threads the needle. A perfect pass over to Cam Fowler in the slot, who receives it, takes a little time, and shoots it against the grain on Bernier, who has no chance. And that would make it 3-1. And at that point, you look at the underlying numbers, you look at the scoreboard, and you have to feel pretty good if you're the Ducks at that point.
Yeah, I mean they go up they're up 3-1. They've played a pretty good period up until that point. Like I said, at the end of the first, it was kind of up and down, and then the start of the second period was really actually up. They were generating a lot of chances. Would have been nice if they could have capitalized on one of those power plays. Story of the season so far.
And that is the issue.
Yes. But they had a lot of chances, a lot of shot attempts going the other way. And they had a 2-goal lead. That's pretty decent at that point in time. Maybe you'd like to see a little bit better, but I mean, 2 goals a 2-goal lead is something that they should be able to protect.
Yeah. And this, I think, is a bit of a concerning trend here because they had a pretty good lead, and the third period they did not hold true to how they've been for most of the season, where they usually have not just sat back on their leads. They sat back pretty hard in that third period.
They did. And so going into the third period, I mean, there's one more goal that the Red Wings would score on an Athanasiou tip in front. So going into that third period, the Ducks were up 3-2, so the going with a 1-goal lead, the 2-goal lead had evaporated to 1 at that point in time. I'm wondering how much of this, though, is based upon them not having Manson Lindholm. Because I'm now trying to think to the games that they've had where they haven't had both of them. Because there have obviously been a fair amount without Manson at this point in time. But not having Lindholm is also a huge hit. And
well, here's the thing, though. I mean, on one hand, I think that is very damaging for their ability to defend a lead. But what was concerning in that third period is that they weren't generating. There wasn't a whole lot going the other way.
And so that's kind of where I'm going with this, though, is that with Lindholm out there, it kind of puts all the other D pairs in their correct places. And Lindholm's so good at not getting caught in his own zone. And it allows the team to break out to get into the other zone and to push the other direction and not get hemmed in their own zone. That really stops the quote-unquote turtle from happening. And so I wonder how much of this, and like I was kind of thinking, without Lindholm, I'm trying to think of the games that they've played so far. They played against Vegas, that they got blown out. They played the last game against, I am spacing on against Edmonton, which they got blown out. And then there was this game against Detroit. I think this was probably the first game that they had a lead without Lindholm.
Yes, and also just a game where they generally were playing well throughout most of the game.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I'm going with this, though, is that this is the first time that we've seen the Ducks team in this current situation with the injuries that they have a lead going into the third period. And I think this just puts more emphasis on how important. I mean, there have been so many people that have talked about Hampus Lindholm and how he's disappointed so far this year. If you want a key example of how important he is to the team, look at these last 2 games. Look at how this game and how they were defending in the third period, because I think if they have Hampus Lindholm, this is a completely different third period because of what it does for the rest of the pairs, how it sets them up. Because I think the key here is the breakout. If the breakout's not clean and doesn't allow them to transition, then they get stuck in their own zone. And I think that's the biggest issue I saw in that third period.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of it. Now, just fast forwarding to the end here, this is where things just kind of fell off the rails for the Ducks. After not only their turtling, but then they also take penalties. So Brendan Guhle goes to the box with a pretty ill-timed penalty of his own. And then Corbinian Holzer one-ups him. First off, Dallas Eakins choosing to put Corbinian Holzer and Jacob Larson out there to defend a lead.
That was questionable.
Is just bad coaching. That's bad decision making.
I don't disagree with that.
If we're going to be fair here, I know we all, I think that it's no secret on this podcast that we really like how Dallas Eakins approaches the game, and we appreciate kind of his newer philosophies. And we were really hard on Carlisle last year. And in the interest of fairness, I don't think this was a great coaching performance.
We gotta call him like we see him, and that's
just a bad choice.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when you have.
To be fair, there aren't great alternatives.
No, but why would you not have Cam out there?
Yeah, exactly.
As much as people kind of debate about whether Cam Fowler is great in his own zone, I don't think that we can really have a debate that if you want. Who do you want out there to kill off a game? Do you want Cam Fowler or do you want Corbin
And you know that if Fowler can recover it, he's much likelier to get it out, right? Either skating or passing.
And now the only caveat that I'll have there is I'm not quite sure if Cam had just come off the ice and maybe he didn't have the legs for it.
But call a timeout.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? I mean, that's the time in the game where you can do it. Yeah, I mean, Dallas Eakins it's his first time back in the NHL in a long time, right? So, like some of the rookie players in this team, he's also maybe finding his footing a little bit. But it happens. I mean, even to veteran coaches, sometimes they make mistakes. It's not unusual for that to happen. But after those two penalties, and Holzer's penalty was especially bad. I think it was worse than Guhle's because he steps up at the wrong time as the Red Wings are entering the zone, and then he's automatically putting himself behind Andreas Athanasiou, who, by the way, burned at least 3 different guys tonight. He is very fast.
He is very, very fast.
He is incredibly fast. It's actually crazy that Detroit is considering trading him. But so he steps up at the wrong time, can't recover, has to hook Athanasiou. At that point, the Red Wings are up with the empty net 6-on-3. So they're a 3-man advantage. Now, Jake, you have a theory as to how teams should play this when they're down 3 men.
It's not a theory.
Or the other team is up 3 men, I should say.
It's not necessarily a theory. It's just a concept, you know?
It's a concept. Yeah, that's a very diplomatic way of saying it.
I don't know. It's just trying to think outside the box, which is something I like to try to do. If anyone out there has caught on to that by now, or anyone out there that knows me kind of knows that. But so if a team is down to 3 guys on the ice, as in there are 2 guys in the box, so you're down to 3 guys on the ice. If you take another penalty, I'm not sure how many of the people out there know this, you don't go down to 2 men. You stay at 3. And it's just that third penalty doesn't kick in until someone comes out of the box. Yeah, it's something along those lines. But essentially, until one of the other penalties has expired, that penalty does not kick in. I believe that it is once the first penalty expires and the guys come out of the box and a whistle's gone. But regardless, you can send out a guy onto the ice, take a too many men on the ice penalty, it becomes 6-on-4 against instead of 6-on-3. And essentially the entire time while the Red Wings have the puck, it's a delayed penalty. So yes, once you touch the puck, it still goes back to 6-on-3. But for that period of time, if the Red Wings are possessing the puck, you have a 6-on-4 as compared to a 6-on-3, giving yourself one more person on the ice and helping clog the zone. Now, this can all be negated if the Red Wings realize that and just give up the puck and say, screw it, we're letting you have it, touch it, take another penalty. The whole concept is building upon the fact of the Red Wings not fully realizing that and doing that. But it's definitely not something that's foolproof. It's definitely, I don't know if it will ever happen, but it's just something that popped into my head as they were down 6-on-3. I probably have heard it on a podcast somewhere, to be honest. And someone theorized on it.
I don't know what the equivalent of this would be in another sport. I'm really trying to think.
I mean, well, the closest is what you and I were talking about before we started recording, which was that in basketball, giving up or taking a timeout when you don't have one and just giving up
the free throws.
Giving up free throws.
I was thinking in football, it's not like, there's really no equivalent in football that I can think of. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a thought. It's definitely a thought. Definitely, I like the outside of the box approach there. Yeah. But yeah, on that tying goal, I mean, it's 6-on-3. I didn't really have very high expectations, honestly. I think I even texted you before. Yeah, they're going to score here. And I mean, especially seeing good Branson.
You texted me that before the penalties were even called.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I just knew it was going to happen. I mean, the Ducks were they were giving it away, and they couldn't clear the front of their own net, and then Dylan Larkin gets the rebound. and all the Red Wings fans in the arena go crazy. They tie it up. And then at 3-on-3 in overtime, so the Ducks managed to kill off the remainder of the penalty. It goes to 3-on-3, and they continued to aid the Red Wings in achieving this victory. They actually did a nice job of controlling in the zone. And then at one point, was it Andre Kasha or Sam Steele that passed it back to just kind of no one?
Sam Steele was passing it back to Andre Kasha. Kasha was instead.
Well, the thing is that the pass was a little off, and Kasha had to catch up to it, and so Ryan Miller has to come out all the way to the blue line and has to clear it out, which is I love when goalies do that. It's maybe one of my favorite plays in hockey, just because it's like, oh man, how is this gonna go? I don't know if you remember a few years ago. This is actually like a decade ago, but Hasek came all the way out to the blue line and flipped Marian Gaborik.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of those plays. But yeah, so after Miller manages to clear it out, Sam Steele turns it over in the neutral zone. Rickard Rakell loses a battle. And then Dennis Cholowski just comes in, has plenty of space. Josh Maher gives up the blue line pretty easily, and he shoots it on net. I think Ryan Miller would probably want to have this one back. It goes under his arm and into the net in that 7-hole. But I'm not really going to blame Ryan Miller for much of anything tonight, because I thought he actually had a pretty good game overall.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, the Ducks get a point out of this one. I think if you're going to zoom out and look at this just a little bit more coldly, they probably should have won this game and played well enough to deserve a victory. They just, the periods where they screwed up really badly. And I'm not sure what to attribute that to. Is it because they played on Sunday, short rest? Is it because of the injuries? There's a number of different factors you could point to.
I think the biggest factor here is that they just didn't close out the game. Because you look at this game as a whole, they outplayed the Red Wings, and I don't think that's controversial at all to say. Corsi for percentage was at 54%. High danger chances, 15 high danger chances for, only 5 high danger chances against. That's insanely good to only limit a team to 5 against. 30 scoring chances for, 26 against, 2.91 expected goals for, 1.86 expected goals against. So it really just comes down to, in my opinion, they played well enough to win. They probably should have had a 2-goal lead going into the third period. They just had some glaring errors and weren't able to close out the game. They weren't able to go on the front foot in that third period and get that fourth goal. Because getting that fourth goal would have been key. Giving yourself a 2-goal lead, giving yourself that 2-goal cushion, and that's the biggest thing with this game. And it's funny because it's something that we've seen from this team earlier on, that they haven't sat back with the lead, that they've been able to push forward, that they've been able to create chances and keep the puck in the other team's zone during the third period. And that just wasn't the case tonight. It was very much kind of back and forth, kind of stagnant, and then just some really bad penalties against, and really poor timing on those. And that's something that is important, is that they weren't just bad penalties, they were really badly timed penalties on top of that.
Agreed. Yeah, and so I think, again, back to kind of more the big picture angle, you look at, I mean, some of the comments I'm seeing on Twitter, and people are saying, this is just kind of calling into question Dallas Eakins and the job he's doing here. And I'm not ready to make this sweeping judgment on Dallas Eakins just because of the last stretch of games. There's obviously some extenuating circumstances, and also we just don't have a body of work to really judge him off of. It's just too early. I know that people are frustrated. I know that people are looking at this losing streak and saying, well, what the heck is the difference? We're all injured and we're sucking. So, I think that's how a lot of fans feel right now. And they feel like it's the same thing. But this is, again, a different circumstance. This team is not operating with the same goals that it was last year. Again, it's a retooling year, and they're just trying to learn what they have in this team. Now, that can be one of the takeaways of this game, is that at times, Troy Terry, Sam Steele just didn't really have much of an impact tonight. They maybe had one good shift that I can remember in this game. Brendan Guhle, after playing pretty well down in San Diego, maybe the kind of yo-yo effect is just not working out for him. But I didn't think he had a particularly strong game. No. And I was optimistic that him coming back, especially in a game like this where the team needs him against a weaker opponent, that this was kind of the ideal setting to come back. And instead, he took a penalty at the worst possible time and just didn't play that well overall. Like, that's not what you want.
The weird thing to me on that is that they were talking about, and this is one of the times that I'll critique Dallas Eakins on this. Dallas had mentioned that they had him set for a role with Cam not going up against the other team's top lines coming back. And then once Manson went down, that kind of changed everything. I'm really kind of not sure what the difference between tonight is and then, because like I said, the Guhle Larson pairing went up against Larkin. It's kind of confusing, honestly, that would be how they would deploy him. If you're going to do that, why not just put him with Cam?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that pairing has worked. And yeah, it's worked in a specific context, but hey, might want to find out if it can work in other ways, right? I mean, the Ducks are kind of playing with house money right now. I don't think anyone is expecting them to be rattling off wins. And so I think Dallas Eakins needs to be a little more experimental with his lineup selection. And yeah, it's obviously easy to criticize when the team is losing and things are going well, but I think that they're not going well for a reason. And those reasons are within his control. So we'll see what they do to adjust. Now, one thing that I did want to talk about, this happened before the game. I think we're all done with this recap. Max Comtois sent down. And if you'll remember on the last podcast, I had said 4 games max for Max until he gets sent back down.
Yeah,
and
you were wrong. How does it feel? How does it feel?
Well, no. I said 4 games max. So anything less would still be correct. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, he's sent down, and I think that as we talked about on yesterday's podcast, the timing is good. I think that he's been struggling lately. I think that the team is also entering a tough stretch of its own, and maybe it's best for him to go down to San Diego, play in a bigger role, and get some confidence. What did you make of seeing him get sent down?
It makes total and complete sense. It's honestly where he should be. I mean, he's the guy that could probably have the most to gain from going down to San Diego. He's a guy that, I mean, we have to remember, this is his first year pro. He played in a couple games last year, but he only played in 10 games. The
playoffs? Did he play in the playoffs for the goals?
For the goals, yeah. He did. But I'm just talking about overall in professional hockey. He's a rookie. This is a guy that is still getting used to the rigors of not only an NHL schedule, but a professional schedule of not being up in small town Canada and not having to deal with kind of that different type of thing. He's dealing with the professional game, having to be good night in, night out at that level against the top level of competition. He's not playing against 16, 17, 18-year-olds. So there's a whole lot going on there, and there's going to be growing pains. And this is something you and I were even texting about today a bit, that there's going to be growing pains with these kids. And Troy Terry and Sam Steele, like you had told me, or you had texted me, they did not look as good as Max Jones did tonight. Max Jones clearly looked better, which hasn't been the case probably for most of the year, but tonight it was, and that's just going to be the case. That's going to be what happens when you have these kids. Where I'd get concerned is if those stretches extend multiple, a very large sample size, that it's a 10-game stretch, a 20-game stretch, where they look bad, where they look really, really bad, and that's where I'd get concerned. But for right now, I think part of it is just having to have that understanding that there are going to be some growing pains, that these guys aren't going to come up to the NHL and instantly be superstars.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a whole lot to get into there. Yeah. Let's go into our second break, and we'll get into some of the young players' performances a little bit more. Okay, back from our second break here. So we were talking about the young players right before that, and I did want to touch on that a little bit. We are entering the territory a little bit of them having a bit of a stretch here where they're just not quite as noticeable, and we'll see if that continues. I think that part of the commitment to this type of season for the Ducks is being able to live with these stretches where they're just not really performing to the level that you would hope that they are, or that they would. And maybe they go down to San Diego. I don't think that's going to happen for Steele and Terry. Yeah, I mean, you cannot think that, but the point is they're entering territory now where they're just not really playing all that well. I think that they're regulars, but let's see. The Ducks are being tested right now. Part of going into a season where you're treating it as a transitional phase is there's going to be some real low light moments where you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's really easy in those situations to change course or to decide to do something else, to bring in some veterans. And so the Ducks are being tested right now. And I think that I think passing this test, as odd as it may sound, is just to not panic, to not make a move to bring in a veteran or to send everybody down or whatever the case may be, something to that effect. I think if they stick this out, stick to the process, they're going to be better for it on the other side because, again, they're going to have a better idea of what they have in these players, and those players will be battle tested. They're going to have faced some adversity. You know, everyone can use a little adversity here and there, and I think that that's what these kids are experiencing because in the beginning of the season, it was all rosy, right? They're the stars of training camp. They're better than everyone in these rookie games, right? They're just head and shoulders above players of their own kind of age range, and the first few games were really exciting. Now they're in the thick of it. Now it's the games where, like you were saying earlier, you're not in a junior schedule anymore where the trips are not shorter, but they're shorter distances. Because the bus rides are really long, but the competition isn't as high. You can take some nights off. It's the NHL. It's different, and so I'm very curious to see not only how the Ducks are going to manage it internally in terms of what kind of comments Dallas Eakins is going to make, that type of thing, but also just what their roster management is going to be like. Are we going to see the younger players maybe get less ice time or be put in lower roles, or is Dallas Eakins just going to stick it out, maybe even embolden them, give them more responsibility? We'll see. It's going to be really interesting. But yeah, you did allude to this. Max Jones I thought he was the best of those young players tonight. I thought that he looked really good. He looked really good on Sunday against Edmonton as well. So that's a positive. A guy who was struggling a little bit maybe early in the season, he seems to be finding his game, which is good to offset some of the struggles of the other guys.
Yep, it definitely is. I really just want to see all three of those guys clicking at the same time, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the kind of elusive thing for the Ducks right now. Is just, can they get all three of their young players to be clicking at the same time?
Eventually it's going to happen. And once that happens, I think it's going to be a real fun thing to watch. And hopefully, this is the big hope, is that if they stay on a line together and they all eventually click at the same time, that it's going to create results that kind of end up becoming kind of this momentum that just keeps on going. And I'm really hopeful of that happening. I think the jury's still out whether that will happen or not. But I think once one gets going, one finds the net a couple times in a game, I think the rest are gonna follow suit. And especially if you keep them on a line together, that's gonna happen.
Here is one guy that was encouraging in terms of the young players. Josh Mahura, good numbers next to Eric Goodbranson, scored a goal.
He's had some pretty decent numbers next to Eric Goodbranson, actually, which is no small feat. Which is very interesting to me. I'm really curious because once Lindholm comes back, one would probably assume that it's going to be Mahura sent back down, but maybe it is Guhle. But if it is Mahura sent down, because Lindholm probably jumps in next to Goodbranson, it's going to be a little bit of a litmus test. Granted, small sample size kind of affects a lot of things. Also, we should mention the opponent tonight wasn't one of the best teams in the league. This is a Detroit
Red Wings. You're right. It wasn't. You're right. You're absolutely right there, objectively.
Thanks for jumping in there. Detroit, who's pretty bad, to be honest. So
who's last in the Eastern Conference?
Yes. So that's something that needs to add to the context of our analysis of this game, that this was a pretty bad Red Wings team.
Or sorry, I didn't mean to insult the Red Wings. They're one spot above the Ottawa Senators.
There you go. You go. So that also needs to be taken into consideration, that the Ducks played this team, but this is a team they should outplay and that they should beat. And so...
And I think that's why I'm viewing this game a little more harshly than maybe the numbers would suggest, because that's kind of my expectation
yeah.
of this team. But maybe what we're learning is that the big challenge for this Ducks team, both with the injuries and the relative inexperience, is that it's kind of hard for them to have a baseline of performance night in and night out.
Oh,
what I'm saying is that they're inconsistent.
I mean, and that's kind of what we expected. I mean, this is what we said coming into the season, even, that the standard deviation for the potential ceiling for this team and the floor for this team in terms of both points and just performance is probably one of the biggest in the league.
It's game to game. I mean, it really is. We see, it's almost like we see 3 different teams in 1 week, which is kind of maddening.
Our resident Red Wings / Ducks fan, Lockdown Late Night, aka Justin, chimed in saying, "Us Red Wings fans prefer to be called last adjacent." So there you go.
Oh, that is so good. I love sports fans, or fans of teams that are in last place that are just chronically bad, and kind of this dry humor that they develop. I feel like every league has those fans. Hey. Like if you're a Browns fan in the NFL, or if you're, I guess, a Red Wings fan right now, you almost develop this like dry sense of humor that I really enjoy.
Well, I mean, you got to do something to keep yourself from going insane if you're supporting a team like that. I mean, we saw it last year with the Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Wings have a long way to fall, though. I mean, they were pretty spoiled for a long time.
Yeah, they were very spoiled, so they can handle this.
Although we're finding out that one of the guys who was really credited for that period, Mike Babcock, maybe he might not be that good of a coach. I don't know.
He's still a really good coach.
Is he, though? Where's the evidence?
The evidence is that the first year
the evidence is that he takes teams with really, really good players to the playoffs.
No, but the very first year with the first year with the Maple Leafs was the sign of that. Yes, they didn't get the results. Their underlying numbers were still real good that year.
With Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Morgan Riley.
No. His very first year.
Yeah, they made the playoffs in a league where 16 teams make the playoffs.
His very first year, they didn't make the playoffs.
Right, but
what I'm saying, they got Matthews.
What I'm saying is that if he's this, I don't know how this turned into a Babcock argument. I guess I just randomly took a pot shot at him.
Yeah, you took it there.
I don't know. I just think he's really overrated. I just wanted to get that in as the Canadians climb the standings. Another thing I just wanted to put out there.
Okay. I think it's time for some questions.
Yeah, let's do questions.
Yeah, so anyone in the Twitch chat, if you have some questions...
Before this becomes a Patreon episode.
Yeah, if you have some questions, throw them into the Twitch chat. We'll get to that. So, for those of you watching the recorded version of the show on YouTube, yes, we are on YouTube. You can find us by searching for AC Pod. If you want to like and subscribe to our videos there, that would really be helpful. If you want to comment there, we can actually go ahead and get to some of those comments if they want to be addressed. And there's one, and I'll find it once I get through this that we can get to. But we also do a live stream of the show each and every time at twitch.tv/acpod. And at Twitch, you can help support the show in a way that's completely free to you. If you have Amazon Prime, you have Twitch Prime. And with that, you can help support your favorite streamers out there in a way that's free for you. You just have to hit that subscribe button above Felix's head, and you do have to redo that every 30 days, and it does help the show out significantly. You get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name, and we actually have 2 new subs from tonight's show. Hex_Lopez resubscribed for 3 months. I saw. Bionic, the Momorg, we will get to that. Bionic Crisis has resubscribed for 4 months, and Kempafu just chimed in, just resubbed for 9 months. So we now have 3 subs because of Kempafu. So, you want to get to some of those questions while I find the YouTube comment?
Yeah, so this is a pretty crazy one from, not crazy like in a bad way, but the Momorg.
Lockdown Late Night just resubbed for 9 months. So 4 subs tonight. Thank you, everyone.
The Momorg asks, who's better this year, Miller or Gibson? I just love that question because I know where it's coming from, which is Gibson isn't that great right now, and we're pissed off about it. That being said, though, as good as Ryan Miller is, Ryan Miller can't be John Gibson right now. He can't be a starter in the NHL at 39. His body is just, it's not in that place. That being said, though, who's been better in their role is an interesting question.
It is, actually.
And I would argue that Ryan Miller has been better in his role. Again, the threshold is obviously lower, but Ryan Miller is one of the best backup, maybe the best backup goalie in the NHL. My opinion.
The Ducks tandem might be one of the best tandems in the entire league.
Oh, easily. Is that even? Are people like wondering about that?
Well, if you hear people talk about, I forgot what podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about best tandems in the league. It was just a question, and there was no mention of the Ducks. People were mentioning.
Was it the PDO cast?
Maybe they were mentioning Dallas. Yeah. They mentioned Boston. No mention of Anaheim.
Yeah. So Ryan Miller's stats are quite good this year. Obviously, though, there is the caveat that he is not, he hasn't had the biggest workload, but with what he's being asked to do, he's performing very, very well. Now, what is a bit concerning when it comes to John Gibson is that after that game against Edmonton, whereas before he was still way up there in terms of goal save of the expectation relative to the shot quality, he is now barely above break even. He's now barely above saving what you would expect in terms of the shots he's facing. It's him and Tuukka Rask that are down there with the starters, or as in the list of starters. So that's concerning. I think that Gibson's performance, it has taken a dip lately. Whether we want to argue each goal, it's just to the point where those are going in. Whereas before you expect those to be saved each time. And if the Ducks are going to be plagued by injury, if their 5-on-5 play is going to drop off, if their offense is going to go missing some games, they need John Gibson to they can't have this version of John Gibson. By the way, this version of John Gibson is still a good goalie. He's still saving more goals than you would expect based on the shots they're giving up, but they need him to be one of the best goalies in the NHL, elite level. And that's just not what he's been lately. And he's been so good in the past, and he was even so good to start this year that I'm not gonna press the panic button quite yet. But it is something to monitor. Has the mileage that he's accrued the last couple of years, even with some of the injuries, is that taking its toll? I mean, it's interesting because this is the first time we've seen Gibson take a dip without any type of outside factors. You can't really pin it on the workload because the season just started. You can't pin it on injuries because he hasn't been injured. So it seems like it's just his play. And I don't know. What do you make of that?
I think that there are going to be ebbs and flows throughout the entire season. Goaltending is one of streaks.
I think that this also kind of cements how good of a year he had last year.
Well, I also
how good he was, because he also had downturns last year as well.
Here's my thing on goaltending. All goaltenders can have a hot stretch. That's undeniable. They made the NHL. They were good at some point in time. I mean, there was one point in time where Curtis McElhinney almost led the Ducks to the playoffs with an insane 13-game stretch where he just was out of his mind. Now, did I think that Curtis McElhinney was going to be able to keep that up? Not really. And so that's where this all comes in. All goalies are going to have a good stretch. I mean, Jonathan Bernier had good stretches for the Ducks. The best goalies in the league can somehow find a way to stop those from continuing. Maybe keep those stretches, the bad stretches that end up happening, from only being to maybe only a game or two.
And Time makes a good point in our Twitch chat as well that he's playing behind a pretty crappy blue line right now.
Oh, yeah.
So again, that doesn't totally dismiss the goals he's letting in, but it does provide some context.
Yeah, and on the Momore, who just said the shots on goal versus Gibson seems to be 40+ versus Miller 25+. Tonight, that was mainly because of the team they were playing. I don't think it has to do with the D getting lazy. That's just quality of the team against. We had a question from Time said, do the Ducks win a game while out shooting their opponents this year? Yes. I'm going to go with yes there, Time.
Yeah, I'm going to go with yes. I think that there's a pretty good chance that'll happen.
Yeah, and then Georgie Khan asked us, what's wrong with Lindholm? I think last time I saw, it's a lower body injury. That it's the same one that was nagging him earlier on in the season when he ended up missing the game against Vegas. Mm-hmm. And so it's a continuation of that injury.
Yeah, I mean, really no details released by the team and not much reporting, so it's kind of hard for us to really add anything to that right now.
Yeah, and then Bonnie brings up a point that says no one has mentioned Marty Wilford as a common denominator in terms of special teams going south. Marty Wilford doesn't run the power play, though, I believe. He probably has a say in the penalty kill. Has the penalty kill really... I mean, I haven't really actually looked at the numbers that in depth to see where they rank in terms of penalty kill percentage this year, but I don't think off the top of my head that they've been that bad. It seems like they're probably just like middle of the road in terms of that. The power play has been bad. There's no way around that the scoring's dried up on the power play.
Yeah, I think it's Mark Morrison who handles the power play, if I'm not mistaken. But if you look at the penalty kill this year, if we're assuming that Marty Wilford is... If we're assuming that he's in charge of that, which he is in charge of the blue line, so it's
a safe assumption.
It's a pretty reasonable assumption, yeah. If you look at just expected goals against per 60 minutes at 4v5 on the penalty kill, the Ducks are in the bottom tier of the league. They rank 19th, so they're right on that cusp of just below average.
The question is, what's that percentage? What's that percentage at? Because this is a different issue, but they take a fair amount of penalties.
Yeah, but it's expected goals against, so I guess
but that's still a total. That's not a rate. So
it's per 60.
I
said
was
per 60.
My bad. I missed that.
I said it out loud.
I missed
into the air.
I missed it.
No, but I mean, yeah, there is still an element though of like, hey, if you're taking a lot of penalties, that's going to have an effect. But if you look at high danger chances against per 60, they rank 17th. So there's not much evidence suggesting that their penalty kill is good. In fact, it seems to be not good. So yeah, I think Bonnie may be onto something there in terms of the Marty Wilford aspect of all this.
Edgar Lovo, this was the one on our YouTube. Made mention, I don't know if we've talked about this, but Craig Custance had that article that he put out a while ago where he had polled a bunch of coaches, GMs, and goalie coaches and asked them to put goalies in different tiers. And they had John Gibson as a whole being in tier 2. And one of the coaches said, first of all, he gets hurt a lot, which is just reality. Another said his numbers are really good. I just don't love him. Another one says, I don't know, man. I'd like to see another good season.
I love those quotes.
My takeaway.
I love those quotes so much.
My takeaway from the article is that basically, I don't trust coaches or GMs to be able to correctly analyze the goaltending position.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, that's my biggest takeaway. I mean, this is a guy who, yes, he's had some injuries over the last couple seasons, but they've been little ones here and there. He still played 60 some odd games. I don't know. Even if he wasn't hurt, that's how many games you want him to play. So I don't know what more you want to say, whether it's resting him, whether it's whatever. He played the amount of games you would expect from a starter. Maybe you even would want to play him less. There's also the aspect of it that his numbers have been really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, let's move on from that one.
Okay, fine. All right, here is the big question that we should end with. The Mo Morgas. If the Ducks are to get back to being a cup contender, how do they rebuild the blue line?
I think that's a good question because that kind of seems to be the issue right now.
Yeah.
Up front, I mean, they have prospects, right? I mean,
they
Sam
have
Steele,
pieces.
Troy Terry, Comtois, Jones. One of those guys is probably going to become a pretty good player. And then Trevor Zegras, you have in the collegiate ranks right now. And then you have, of course, Braden Tracy, who they drafted in the first round. So there's at least kind of a groundswell there of guys who are going to become who are going to form the bulk of this team. The question is, what do you do about the blue line? And I'm kind of the opinion that it's a little easier to build a blue line for a couple different reasons. One is if your pro scouting is looking at the right things, so guys who can move their feet, guys who can move the puck up the ice quickly, guys who are maybe a little bit more offensive minded, there's a lot of money left on the table by NHL teams in terms of free agency, in terms of guys who are on the trade block. So I think that's something, it's a weakness that you can rectify a little more quickly. Also, there's just less spots to fill. There's 6 defensemen compared to 12. So it's obviously nice to have a foundational piece like a Hampus Lindholm, but I think it's easier to build a blue line than it is a forward group. What do you think of that?
Yes and no. I think the hard thing with the blue line is that
you need that big piece.
Yes. And so that's the issue, is that how are you going to go about getting that big piece? I think that I'd equate defensemen with centers. And so there's only 4 centers on a team. There's 6 defensemen. So in a way, it's almost easier to find that center.
You need it's almost like you need 2 top centers. You need 2 top defensemen.
You 100% do. And the thing is, the Ducks have the pieces there with a Lindholm and a Fowler, but they just need to find other pieces to come in to support them in a way. And you have Josh Manson.
With the Lindholm.
Sure.
With the Lindholm,
wow.
Period.
Fowler also. Fowler. I'm keeping him in there.
I mean, yeah, if you average out Manson, Lindholm, Fowler, that's a legit top 3.
And you just need to find guys to complement that. And
But that's what I'm saying. But look at Josh Manson though. He wasn't a high draft pick. Cam Fowler was a 12th overall pick. Like that's not like a guy that you're like a generational talent. That's a guy that fell to them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a little easier to find those guys. Getting Hampus Lindholm 6th overall, that's the big one, right? You do need that guy.
I was actually looking at that draft, by the way. I think it's without a doubt. I think Lindholm's the best player from that top 10.
What is that, the 2012 draft?
Yeah, the 2012 NHL draft. Potentially the best player from that first round, depending on how you view 1 or 2 play.
See, now I'm absolutely looking this up.
Is this
Oh God.
What?
I now, of course, this is the Nail Yakupov draft.
Exactly.
My God.
Look at the top end of that draft, Felix.
Hey, I remember I watched that draft because Alex Galchenyuk, the Canadians, had the 3rd overall pick that year.
So if you look at that draft,
Griffin Reinhart, number 4.
There's only
So just to recap for those who might not know, Nail Yakupov went 1st overall to the Oilers. And for those who might not be aware, Nail Yakupov is no longer in the NHL. Yeah. Ryan Murray, number 2. I mean, I think that he's become a really good player for the Blue Jackets, but you would want more at number 2.
Yeah,
a lot more. Alex Galchenyuk, number 3,
on his third team.
On his third team, I mean, he has 299 points in 499 games. Like, he's not this terrible player, but he's just okay, and you want more than that at number 3. Yeah. Griffin Reinhart had played 37 games in the NHL. So Morgan Rielly, number 5. I think that's a solid pick.
Yeah.
Right. That's maybe the only pick so far that I think kind of lines up with the spot. Hampus Lindholm, number 6. I think he's the best player of those first 6 guys.
Yeah.
Depending on your opinion on Morgan Rielly. I don't know. Would you rather have Rielly or Lindholm?
Lindholm.
Yeah.
I think Lindholm. I think Rielly will get you more points, but I think Lindholm helps you win more games.
So we're not going to go over each and every pick. Here is the competition, though, that Lindholm has in this first round. Tomas Hertl. Very good. Andrei Vasilevsky. I mean, he won the Vezina Trophy last year.
He's a goalie, though. I think.
Sure, but I mean, if we're just talking about the best player, best skater. If we're going to restrict it to skaters, Philip Forsberg.
Yeah, that's the one for me that I would maybe put above.
I think at number 6, I would probably rather have a forward who scores a lot of points. That's just me, though.
I think it's iffy. I think that there is a debate that can be had between Forsberg and Lindholm.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Part of it comes down to need. I mean, it's really hard. I honestly, like, on one hand, I think that the best argument for Lindholm is what's going on with the Ducks right now.
Yeah.
That they're just almost falling apart at the seams without him. Anyway, yeah, I love going down.
Regardless, I think there's an argument that can be made that Lindholm was the best player in that draft.
Yeah, no, I totally, there's an argument there for sure.
Yep.
What were we even talking about?
I don't really. Oh, we were talking about how to rebuild the Ducks defense.
Well, how to rebuild it. So maybe hold on to young defensemen. I think might be a good first step.
Maybe, just maybe.
Because the Ducks don't really have a problem drafting good young defensemen.
No.
Their problem is keeping them. They lost Shea Theodore for absolutely nothing, and I won't hear otherwise. I'm done arguing that one.
Yeah, I'm willing to take the L on that one.
Brandon Montour, I mean,
that trade was still a good trade.
It's a good trade, although the one thing I will say is I would have been curious to see him under Dallas Eakins.
True. Fair point.
That's the one thing I'll say.
Fair point.
But the Ducks still did well in that trade, so it's not like not a big loss. Marcus Pettersson for Daniel Sprong is starting to look really bad.
That one's looking bad.
Because Marcus Pettersson has been great for the Penguins, and Daniel Sprong is checks notes.
Not even been on the Ducks this year.
Yeah, so that's a problem. And I think what says a lot about the Sprong thing is that Dallas Eakins seems like a guy who wants to give you a chance, who wants you to prove that you can do it. And if Daniel Sprong couldn't even give him a reason, that's tough. And, maybe it wasn't Dallas Eakins' decision. Maybe it was a collective decision. It most certainly probably was collective, but still, if Dallas Eakins is the guy that's beating the drum for you in that meeting, I feel like you're going to come out of that on the team. So, I don't know. Do you think I feel like we ask this every podcast, which is really random for a guy who's not playing, but what's the future for Daniel Sprong in Anaheim? Is there one?
I don't know. I think he comes up, and I think he's got to impress. He has to impress when he gets called up.
I think even if they don't feel that great about him right now, it would be wise to at least give him another chance or two. I mean, there's no harm in that, especially right now. Maybe we'll see him come up. Who knows? Maybe Terry will get some time in.
Maybe.
Just saying that to annoy you.
Yeah, it honestly didn't annoy me at all, actually.
But so the main point, though, is that, hey, maybe if you're going to draft these young defensemen, either hold on to them. Because if the Ducks had just held on to everyone, or even the majority of the defensemen they had, their blue line would be amazing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be one of the best in the NHL.
Sorry. Not trying to sidetrack. Real quick. This is what we will end on. Do we see a panic trade soon? Or a motivation trade, as time puts it?
So then what was the Eric Goodbranson trade?
That's actually a good point. Fair.
Well, I mean, it doesn't preclude them from trading again.
Yeah, but because Bob Murray is definitely not one to shy away from making a trade in a panic situation.
Okay, so here is my question. What is the panic trade?
I have no idea, and I'm kind of terrified about that.
Well, no, but let's actually... Our job is to have ideas on this podcast.
Right. Let me think this one through a little bit. Well, I mean, right now it's quite clear that defense is an issue. And if Lindholm was out long term, I could see them maybe trying to make a panic trade for another defenseman.
So who do you trade?
Ooh, well,
because they're running out of bullets.
They definitely are. Maybe they look to trade Sprong.
Yeah,
it wouldn't. I mean,
for Marcus Pettersson,
you're trading a guy at a real low value point, though.
Would Daniel Sprong get Marcus Pettersson right now?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I don't see them making a panic trade though. I think that this team can. Well, okay. What if it's Nick Ritchie?
Here's the issue with trading Nick Ritchie. His trade value is not high.
He's playing pretty well.
He is.
He's scoring goals.
But that's my point.
He's still taking dumb penalties.
I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, he is. He is
definitely holding penalty tonight.
He is definitely taking bad penalties. But
yeah,
regardless, I don't think Nick Ritchie's has a whole lot of trade value. I think. I mean, are we going to see them panic trade one of the kids?
Andre Kasha?
I mean, he was almost traded before.
Yeah, I mean, Andre Kasha, I think, had one of his best games of the season tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is Andre Kasha. Maybe that's the guy.
What if it's a Max Comtois or Max Jones?
Yeah, but if we're talking trade value, how much value do those guys really have?
I think they might have more value than Ritchie does.
They do, but I would argue that Kasha is more value than all those guys.
That is also true.
20-goal season to his name. The thing with Kasha is that he's kind of in that no man's land where he's not a veteran on this team and he's not really part of the young guys. He's kind of in that in-between. And he has 2 years. He has a very tradable contract.
Yeah.
Because he has a cap hit of 2.6, and most teams can fit that, and he's got 2 years left on his deal. So it's not like he's a rental, and he's an RFA at the end of it. So whatever ends up happening, you still have a lot of control over what he's going to make on his next deal. So that's an attractive That's an attractive asset for a lot of teams, and it's no wonder that the Hurricanes were interested in him. Also because he's pretty good. Maybe he's the guy, but do you really want to give up a guy like Ondrej Kase though right now?
No,
just to make it through the next.
Well,
like here's the thing.
It would be a panic trade.
Well, of course, it all depends what they get back, right?
Yeah.
If they get back a guy, if they get back like a Shea Theodore type, a young, really good defenseman, and they have
You're
to
just
panic.
Driving that dagger in, aren't you?
No. Well, what I'm saying is, if they get back a piece who can be part of the next wave, then it makes total sense.
Oh, yeah.
Because you still have someone to build around.
I mean,
but if they're trading Ondrej Kase for like a veteran, like I don't know, Justin Falk, then that doesn't really do anything because you might still lose the next set of games regardless, and you're going to have one less future piece to work with. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, the name that's still out there that maybe this is who they look at, still unsigned, Julius Honka.
He would make a lot of sense for this team.
A lot of sense.
I don't even care about his limitations. He's just not Corbinian Holzer.
He's He's a top 4 NHL defenseman.
Top 4 might be pushing it.
He's top 4.
He's a really good third pairing guy, but he's a righty.
I mean,
he's Finnish.
Do you think that the Rangers might be open to trading Anthony DeAngelo, seeing as they only got him on a bridge deal? A 1-year bridge? Knowing that he might make more? There were a couple guys that only took 1-year or small bridges.
Kasha with Panarin would be fun.
Yeah. Although I don't know if they're going to be looking for forward help or if they'd want help on the blue line, which the Ducks don't exactly have the ability to
the
offer.
Rangers are bad. They're real bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I don't think now is the time to trade. You're trading at a kind of a low point, and
GMs will take advantage of that.
I got asked this question by Kestrel Scott the other day, beer league line mate.
Scott's gonna love us for how hard we are on Holzer.
Oh yeah. Well, he was asking me, what are they gonna do at the deadline? And I'm like, well, first off, it's too early. Second, they should be sellers.
Yes.
I mean, but then the question becomes, well, who are they going to sell?
Who do they have on expiring deals?
Well, you've got Derek Grant. You've got Nick Delorier. You've got Corbinian Holzer. You've got Michael Del Zotto. And you've got Ryan Miller. Those are your expiring UFAs.
Ryan Miller would probably get you the biggest return.
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense to trade Ryan Miller. But what is a big return for Ryan Miller, though?
Second round pick.
Second, I don't think anyone would trade a second round pick for Ryan Miller.
Depends on how.
Like a third round pick, sure, not second round.
Depends on how much a team is willing to get a goalie or needs a goalie. The question is also he has to accept, or does he have a no move clause?
He has a no trade clause, modified no trade clause.
And honestly, I think if he said no to a trade, Bob Murray seems like the type of person that would stick to that, even if he doesn't have a full no trade.
Well, you have Silverberg and Henrique as the obvious selling candidates.
Yeah, Silverberg's not getting moved. He has the A. That's just
And Henrique is not getting moved either.
Yeah, I think that's more likely, but not.
The thing
that's
is that
an off-season move.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. It feels like an off-season move. So really, the only likely candidates are Nick Ritchie and Ondrej Kase and maybe Devin Shore, if they just feel like he's not going to end up having a consistent enough spot with this team. He is an RFA at the end of the year. You know who else is going to be an expiring free agent a year from now?
What? Who?
Ryan Getzlaf.
Yeah, just stop.
Trade deadline?
Just stop.
To a contender?
Just stop.
It would make a lot of sense.
I think it's now time to...
It would make a lot of sense.
We've been going for an hour 15. We were supposed to go short on this one.
Whatever. We made it this far. I'm not looking back.
This is where it goes.
Getzlaf for first round pick, prospect, and veteran. Hey, crazier things have happened. He'll be 36 by then. Anyway.
Why Zenizate said I should just hang up on you.
Sorry. We're just totally just spitballing here.
Ugh.
This is what happens when we start looking at cap friendly.
We start looking at cap friendly. We start looking at NHL drafts.
I have plenty of time for that take. I have another year and a half for that one, so I'm gonna save that one. I'm just gonna table that one for now.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much.
You also, I think you hate it because you agree to some degree.
No, I don't agree at all.
Okay.
I hate it.
Fair enough.
I hate it. I hate it.
Fair enough. Gretzky was traded. Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Did everyone just like leave the room like running?
Everyone wants to just hang up on you.
Oh gosh. Hey, you guys know I'm kidding. You guys know I'm kidding.
With that look in your face.
Right? Question mark. Okay. Well, let's get out of here. Thanks everyone for tagging along tonight. I'm actually shocked that our live listener count has even held on after this kind of rough loss for the Ducks.
Well, and after you just decided to throw out that they're going to trade Getzlaf. Shocked.
I just don't want to say anything further because I feel like it's just going to dig myself a grave. I also know anything else I'm going to say is, like, I'm not going to say anything that's going to like make it go in the opposite direction either. So I should just stop commenting on that.
I can't tell if I'm crying or sobbing or laughing or sobbing.
I mean, it's almost 11:30 p.m. So it's understandable.
Yeah.
I'm being threatened to be tarred and feathered in the Twitch chat.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign. It's a good sign that, if you've got critics, you're doing something right.
I'm like scrolling.
Or maybe you're just an asshole.
I'm scrolling over you so everyone can see I'm close to hitting the hang up button.
Okay, let's seriously get out of here. Okay, guys. Well, thanks a lot for tagging along. This has been a fun one. Got to some fun topics. And hey, like Jake was saying earlier, if you do subscribe to Twitch, when you throw in those questions, it actually adds about 30 minutes of conversation that we don't plan for, because those questions, first off, people ask really good questions. And secondly, they just send us in different directions, that maybe we'll just come up with ideas, or it'll just spur on conversation. It's always a good thing. And so, like Jake said, twitch.tv/acpod after every game, or sometimes the day after. That's the new caveat. Also, if you've been enjoying the show, you can check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/acpod. If you want to show your support with more than just a subscription on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, you can pay $1 a month as a pledge just to show your support. Say, hey guys, pat on the back, here's $1. You also get access to a patrons-only Discord chat where you get to chat with us when there's breaking news or when you just have different topics. We may start doing something a little more with the Discord chat, like scheduling like maybe like an hour where we do a chat, or like question Q&A, something like that. We'll grow that a little bit. But for $5 a month, you also get 2 bonus episodes per month. So not only do you get all the shows that we do after each game, but you also get 2 bonus episodes. And these are a lot of fun. I actually genuinely enjoy recording those. We go into different directions. We talk about things that we don't always get a chance to get to on the regular pod, such as talking about other teams, such as taking pot shots at Mike Babcock. We do it all on the bonus show. So that's at patreon.com/acpod. Jake, do we have any new reviews?
No, I was taking a look. But if anyone out there does want to leave a review, we will read it on the show. Actually, let me take a look real quick. I was just looking at the U.S. only. So let me see if there's any that I can find for international real quick. So keep on going.
Well, as soon as I start, you're going to find it, because that's always how that works.
Well, I mean, maybe there isn't one.
But while Jake searches for any potential reviews, I will say that if you've been enjoying the show and you are an Apple user, one really easy and free way to support the show, you can simply leave a rating and a review, and also make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There's a lot, all of a sudden, there's a lot of Ducks podcasts out there. So we got to make sure that we're staying right up there with the best of them. So make sure to leave that review if you've been enjoying what we do over here. Of course, though, if you're not on Apple, you can always check us out on Spotify, on Stitcher, on YouTube. We're all over the place. So make sure to check us out in all those different mediums. All the links for those will be in the description of the episode. But that will do it for us tonight, guys. We've got nothing left. We will be back on Thursday, though, as the Ducks will host the San Jose Sharks, who all of a sudden have won 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row. So the timing is interesting. We'll see. We'll see who's even in the Ducks lineup by that point. Maybe a Daniel Sprong cameo, although I would be floored if that actually happened. Mm-hmm. Anyway, thanks a lot for tagging along, guys, and we will talk to you at the next episode.
Bye.